at this stage of my life, I'm much more focused in the thinking and the spiritual teaching, to, you know, to just try to keep learning more about the evolution of consciousness that Billy talks about, and how to apply that in day-to-day life, in solving problems, some that are external and many that are of my own making. Now we are coming into this time, this age of truth and knowledge, where we must focus on the essentials.
Sounds like the spiritual teaching is a very important aspect.
It is. In truth, that will become more and more important over time as the transparent poverty of religion and all of its promises are, you know, realized by intelligent thinking people to be empty, man-made concoctions that go back millennia, that have relied on people simply being believers without hard evidence. In the meantime, there are elements of the teaching that have us simply focus on the elements of self-responsibility, learning how to think, taking one step after another to make our course corrections in our individual and collective lives. More and more young people who are inheriting this mess. We put up these comic book illustrations of some of the information in the case to catch the attention of young people who are going to be bearing the brunt of our ignorance and our poor thinking. So the spiritual teaching is for them as well, and for their children, children after that, for a long time to come. In 1975, I think it was the 10th contact, Semyaze, who was Meier's third contact person, presented to him what she called the introduction to the spiritual teaching. It's so markedly different from religious beliefs, especially because early on, it is explained that each human being is the bearer of an eternal and immortal spirit that never dies and never sleeps, even during the deepest sleep of the human being.
And how is that different than other spiritual teachings?
Well, each person can reflect on that. I mean, I think that we are not told that we are immortal beings that are, most of the religions are requiring that we believe something, and that if we don't, we'll be punished for it. We are asked here to think about this, and there are, I think, over 200 separate sentences of explanation in the spiritual teaching, introduction to the spiritual teaching, and there are many manifestations and parts to the actual spiritual teaching, but this premise that we understand that this spiritual teaching is a part of what they call the creation. It is an energetic part piece, a hologram of the creation that each human being and each incarnation or reincarnation has dwelling within them, learning, absorbing, and also, in a sense, contributing, keeping this whole vehicle alive. And we have in the spiritual teaching and in this document of the introduction to it, the dimensions, and they speak about the dimensions of the human being are endless too. And that we will come to know and learn these things and experience them over time. That if we are moved to study more about the spiritual teaching, Meier himself, as the seventh and final prophet for Earth, has written, and once again, we should say, written the original spiritual teaching originally brought by the 6 prophets before him. There's a document that now should be fully online, or soon will be, called the Goblet of Truth, that actually carries the teaching the way each of the previous prophets presented it and the way Meier presents it, so that we, in contemporary, clear language, we get to see, to read, to understand, to study.
Why is Billy the last prophet?
We live in the electronic age now, and there's no longer a need, because we are not subject to the same falsification that took place when so few people could read and write, and word of mouth was the spreading. The last prophet before Meier then technically was Muhammad, and he had a scribe or two, he had a cousin, I think Omar, and the caliphs, they changed things. And this, we could say, well, why didn't the Plejaren prevent that, and didn't they know? The answer is human evolution in life. We have to, it unfolds, cause and effect. You have billions of people coming onto a planet. These people are human, they're fallible, and they also cannot force us to not change during these times of word of mouth. Now that Meier's been able to put this forward, electronic media, books, sequestered, preserved stuff, they don't need another prophet. There's nothing to add to this. The teaching is the teaching is the teaching. All that needs to be added is human attention to discern for itself what value is placed upon this information, this teaching.
The human being is bearer of a spirit, which doesn't die and which also never sleeps during the deepest sleep of the human being, which records all thoughts and motions, which tells the human being whether his or her thoughts are right or wrong, once he or she has learned to pay attention to it. This spirit in the human being is the bearer of the creational realm, and it is innate to all human beings. It is incomprehensible that the human being talks about a heaven and a heavenly realm in himself, herself, and is not simply content with saying creation, truth, knowledge, wisdom, spirit, consciousness, and existence. The human yearning exists in the joy, which remains for the immortal life, the lasting peace, the spiritual and consciousness-based abundance, which never passes away and lasts forever. Heaven and earth will perish, but truth, knowledge, wisdom, and spirit will never be changeable nor pass away. The spirit and the consciousness are on the lookout for perfection, for harmony, for peace, cognition and recognition, for knowledge, wisdom, truth, and beauty, for love and for the true being, which overall are of absolute duration. Altogether, they result in that which builds the spiritual kingdom. They are all present in the creational. They are all present in the existence as genius of all ingenuity, as melody of all melodies, as ability of all abilities, as highest creational principle, as wonder above all wonders. In his, her dream, the human being is able to create worlds of wonder, just as the creation consciously creates the worlds. To the human being, this skill grows out of his or her own consciousness, which is present in the existence in him or her, just as all wonders are existent in him or her. He, she, himself, herself, is the heavenly realm, the realm of the creational. That's why the terrestrial philosophers of old spoke of the human being as a microcosm in the macrocosm, because everything that is contained in the universe is also found in the human being. The dimensions of the inner nature of the human being are endless. The image of the creation, the spirit in him or her, the existence, which is dimensionless, contains all dimensions in itself, and at the same time transcends all dimensions. The spirit is the wonder of all wonders, out of which all power emerges. A wonder, however, means usage of the spirit power in fulfillment. However, the human being places a wonder into something for which he lacks all possibilities of a logical explanation. If a human being is happy, then his happiness comes forth from the inside, because happiness is a self-created state, but never is happiness a location. Joy comes forth from the inner of the human being, created out of a spiritual and consciousness-based balance. Therefore, everything comes from the inside.